38. I'm Sheila Vaccaro with Lisa Dorsey and Bernie Flynn. Moving to number 2, any comments, suggestions, or petitions by residents in attendance? Seeing none, we'll move on to discussion items. A is the garage monthly report.
Good evening, Forrest Friedman with Reef. First month of the year, here we are. We got through January, relatively quiet in terms of operations. Revenue-wise was good. For some reason, we keep over predicting our January. We keep thinking it's going to be better than it is, but we're much better than last January. That is in part because January last year was that big COVID boom. We're starting to pick up on monthly parkers again. The schools are back in, so we end up getting an influx off of that. So those are rising. Versus 2019, we're about 9.6% up, this year versus that January. And again, it was a banner year. I know I say it every month, but 2019 is still the litmus test. We're getting closer, or well, we're beating it here. I wish everywhere else in the world was. But again, monthly parkers are doing well. Garages are running along. No major, items of note at this particular moment. From a tracking standpoint, changed up the graphs a little bit. So more showing just a year over year, so you can actually see that we're producing better than we were 21 to 22. This is average revenue per day, Bicentennial and Chestnut, which is again the trend that we want to keep seeing. When we go to tickets, similar trend. Just keep seeing that the line up above, showing us that that delta, which is what we want to see. And then if we go to the last slide, revenue. If we actually go down, in comparing the 2 Januaries, we're actually up this January about 71% in transient revenue versus, and again, last January, it was a COVID boom again. So not a big surprise, but it is a nice uptick compared to, where we were. And again, we're doing much better than we were in 2019. So continue that trend, and we'll make back that little deficit that we have right now in the budget as we continue through the year. Questions?
No questions?
No?
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The director's report.
Okay, just go over some highlights. We are working on the 2G, 4G upgrade. The good news is the 4G meters have been returned. The bad news is we now have 231 meters to replace out in the field. So, but they're here. So looking on the bright side, we are hiring a parking officer. We lost one she moved on to a bigger and better job. So if you know anyone, please tell them to call me. We are having internal discussions about improving the permitting process, which I should have something to present next month. I know we ask everyone to create a giant wave at once, and I think that there's a better way to work this out for residents. So I'm working on that and seeing if the software has something that we can do internally so that everyone doesn't have to camp out here like it's a Grateful Dead concert. And then I did meet with Reef Park today to discuss, there's a capital project plan to upgrade the entry ticketing system. So we did meet, and we'll have some recommendations for parking committee and council soon. And then the last thing that I wanted to discuss briefly was the merge wayfinding study. I met with Public Works, and we were thinking, in order to move it forward a little quicker, that maybe parking, Public Works, John O'Brien, we've nominated him, and possibly somebody from council, preferably somebody that would be on parking and Public Works, might want to volunteer to. So if you guys want to draw straws, but I thought that might move it along a little bit faster in the off time to make recommendations. I know there were some previously determined decisions by other councils, and I don't think we budgeted for it this year. So, but we could make decisions for next year.
I like wayfinding. But how much participation would you expect?
I think if we had an initial meeting, we could probably knock out a lot of it and just come up with an idea to present. I don't want to meet like every week or month. I'd say maybe quarterly, but I think one meeting would be a good start. You guys could alternate too, you know?
I-
Or not, and we could just do it and keep
Discuss
recommending.
that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the majority of my report right now. The loading zone survey, John and I came up with some questions I emailed to everyone. I don't know if you want to go through all of the questions. And then John said he would be happy, I'm just speaking for you since you're here. He would send them out through their constant contact to all of the downtown bid participants. We can also post on our website. And I did mention adding a Grubhub, DoorDash question, which is definitely something.
DoorDash, and then also just Uber, they're
Yeah,
those guys.
yes. The guys I drive around every 5 minutes. So we will, if everybody, did anyone have any other questions that you'd like to add? Okay, so if everyone's comfortable with that, we can get that out ASAP. Okay, and we'll post it on the website. Can you send it right now? Okay. That brings us to D. Sorry.
Enforcement on private property.
Yes. So this has come up a few times. You know, we meet weekly with staff. I have a weekly staff meeting and we talk about different enforcement issues. And there's a few layers to this, but typically it's an ordinance. It would be it would require an ordinance modification because I think right now we are allowed to enforce on private property. I don't think the parking department officers are equipped to deal with situations like that. I think if anything, it should go to a police officer for enforcement on private property. Typically, there are situations where people are under stress and, you know, my officers aren't armed and it creates an unfair liability for my department. So the next layer of that, this also touches on, we received a phone call. Our parking kiosk company, Flowbird, let us know that the Justice Center was asking to add their garage into our software. And I asked why, and they said, we've been enforcing at the Justice Center for a while now. I don't know when this began, and I asked to see the agreement because I was not aware of that, and that's technically private property. That's county property that we don't own. So I wanted to I didn't want to move forward with anything, especially if there was a cost associated, because I wanted to hear from the parking committee and council their thoughts on us enforcing for the county at the Justice Center. And if you were aware, I don't know who was aware.
I was uncomfortable with this because there is no agreement. And I think it boils down to that in this particular circumstance. I think enforcing on private property, to me, sounds like a police issue and not a parking issue. But when we get to a county level discussion, if there's no agreement, I don't understand what's going on there. If you guys have any insight, please share.
I don't have any insight. So, but I just have a question. So we're enforcing parking. So you're talking about the parking structure, right?
Right.
So if parking expires, we're giving out parking tickets?
So that was part of it. So originally, I knew we would get calls similar to other apartment buildings, and they would say, somebody's parked in the sheriff's spot. Can you come ticket them? And we would do that because that's what we've done. But then when this Flowbird question came up, I asked why would we add this to our system? And they said, well, you have an officer come by every day and we print out a list and they go ticket all of the cars that are expired at meters that are expired. And I said, what? I wasn't aware we were doing that and I wasn't sure where that came from. And so, yeah. And that's not, we don't get the meter revenue for that. There's a cost associated with every ticket as well. If an officer goes to court, that's money that we're paying for an officer to go to court for these as well.
So we're issuing tickets that we're not being paid for, it goes to the county?
We get the ticket revenue if they pay it. We don't get the revenue from any of the meters. And we don't have any say over, if they call the garage and say, I dispute this, they can
Do
dismiss
whatever
the
they want,
tickets.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah, we should have an agreement. We should have a plan.
I like things in writing because if, I get hit by a bus, I want everyone to know what the plan is. So,
I think my view, if I could share with the committee, is that I don't want the borough to be enforcing things it doesn't own and manage. So on private property, if we're going to, and I have to think this maybe came about from interests who own and operate rental properties or large apartment complexes. I don't want our staff going on to private property and writing tickets because we're not part of any of the processes that go into issuing those permits. And then we have to memorize 14 different flavors of permit issuance and know which one is in effect at which parking lot we happen to be in on that day. There's a simple common law rule about your own private property. People aren't allowed to put their stuff on it. So if someone is parking in your front yard, you can call the cops or you can have the thing towed.
But you call the police, you don't call parking.
I think it just makes our role unclear, and I don't think financially it makes a lot of sense either. And I feel the same way about the county, although the county is a form of local government. So maybe if we want to have a special relationship with them, let us know. We could make that work.
mhm.
Well, we don't know what the revenue stream is in the parking garage.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, I have property that people sometimes park on, mainly college kids, or people that said to themselves, oh, shoot, I have to be in domestic relations in 5 minutes. And they park in my house. And parking has always told me you have to call the police. And that should be the way, because we don't have any jurisdiction. Like even the apartment complexes in my ward and Lisa's ward, there's a lot of parking spaces over there. And our officers have enough to do
Right.
than patrolling who belongs in those private lots.
Mhm.
So, but the county, anytime we can get money from the county, I would make it double or triple because they have more than we have. So I agree with my colleagues. We should have something in writing and it should stipulate, pretty stringently how well we're going to be benefited from it.
Does everyone agree with both of those statements? No enforcement on private property and then consider some sort of MOU or agreement with the county that we could pursue that would have some sort of financial buy-in from the county?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
County gives away free parking on the weekends, which they should,
Mhm.
because they're not in session and everybody in the county is actually paid for that parking garage. But during business hours, I don't want our people going up the 3 or 4 levels checking, if they hand them a piece of paper and we can get the revenue
Mhm.
out of the flow burn, that's a W. So.
Okay. Great. I'll bring something back.
Those parking issues. This is specifically overnight.
That was what I was starting with, which was funny because it seemed like everyone noticed it at the same time. I happened to drive by the same weekend that this came up. And I did talk to Keith about other parks, thinking that maybe if we were I'm trying to get the most bang for our buck with these ordinance modifications so we don't piecemeal them. But he said this was probably the only park in the borough that would have overnight parking issues. So I know that, I'm not sure what company it was. Do you know what company was staging equipment there? Pico?
I can tell you where they're from, and I
Okay.
can tell you what they do.
Okay,
But the name Zimmerman seems to be, and they're a boring company that bore
Okay.
holes under the ground. But they also, people actually take advantage of Greenfield as well.
okay,
Yeah, because it's out of the way. It's dark. It's very, very dark at Greenfield. But the company, have left their equipment there. They're working for Aqua.
okay,
And they must have caught on to us because they actually started moving their vehicles into the giant parking lot.
okay.
So they were parked in the corner up there, but they're pretty much completed right now.
Okay. I guess because it's not posted, no overnight parking and I wasn't sure about, there's no residential, and I'm right? There's no residential permits in that area. And Mayor, okay. I don't want to create another problem by saying no overnight parking if there's residents that need that parking, but I think that there should be some sort of teeth for us to, I don't know, maybe monetize it, but if Pico wants to park trucks there overnight, if there was a fee associated with that, or at least permission from us given.
I'm in that park frequently
Mhm.
at like 7 a.m.
Okay,
And there's a resident that uses that parking lot
okay,
on a daily basis.
okay,
So if we were to say no overnight parking, that would impact those residents. There's at least one car, sometimes two, that's there every morning.
okay,
But I also did see the commercial trucks there, and that seemed to be when Aqua was doing work in the 7th Ward. I haven't seen them this week. So,
We could, to Ms. Dorsey's point, we can print a sign that says no commercial overnight parking without a permit,
right, yeah.
Yes, Mayor.
If it is the neighbor's car that parks there, then what's the objection to the neighbor's car being parked there overnight?
I don't think there's an objection to the neighbor's car. I think
No,
there
I
was an
meant-
objection to the commercial trucks being parked there overnight.
Right, but I'm specifically asking about, if there's neighbor's cars parked there overnight, because the way our street is set up, it's narrow
Mhm.
and it's awkward to park on the side of the street. You can because it doesn't say no parking
Right.
for the time being, but it's still awkward with people coming in and out of the development because it's a cul-de-sac at the end. It's only 14 homes.
Right.
So I'm just wondering what the objection would be. I mean, considering the aggravation, until they fix the aggravation of the parking lot in general and the way they park in our neighborhood, I'm just wondering what the objection would be.
I don't have an objection to residents. That was my point, is I don't want to do something for everyone parking overnight because residents in that area might utilize that in the evenings. I was trying to only do commercial because I didn't want to create an issue for residents that might, not want to park in the street and would utilize that. Because that, I think, is fair. Nobody's using the park at night. It was more concerned about large equipment being stored there overnight so that residents couldn't use the parking. Yeah.
I think
And-
it also.
And if you don't want cars there overnight, you might not want snow there dumped overnight too. Just a thought.
But I do think that the objection to the oversized vehicles is damage to the parking lots, whereas the passenger vehicles are not an issue.
I will also say, in the past few weeks, Public Works and Parking, we've been meeting consistently and we've had really good luck with communicating well with Brubacher and Aqua and Pico and InfraSource, and they've been really responsive. So I do think that we are working on the communication. So they have been more responsive, but in this situation, you know, there's no, if they're cracking the asphalt or whatever the parking is with their trucks, that's not really fair for us to have to repave it.
I think we're all good with.
Okay, so should we look into doing no commercial overnight parking without permission and fee associated? I don't know why I asked. Okay.
Okay. We're going to move on to 4. 4A is approve the January 2023 Parking Committee meeting minutes. Okay, good. And then B, loading zones at 100 North Church Street, West Side.
So this is the one that I brought up last month, and this is the one in front of Melena's shop that's technically not in the ordinance because it was temporarily moved from the 50 North Church Street side. Melena couldn't be here. She had to run an errand. She had to do something. So I said that I would speak on her behalf, but it is actively there, and she's requesting that we make it official until we have a loading zone plan for the borough. So this would require another ordinance amendment.
I'm not, it was, I was around when we gave that loading zone.
Mhm.
And the reason why we moved it is because O.B. Lang was resurfacing the sidewalks and the curbs and the trees from Gay to Chestnut.
Mhm.
Because they couldn't park there because they were just tearing everything apart.
Mhm.
So to be fair to keep a loading zone in that corner, we just moved it across the street.
Mhm.
I don't believe there was any paperwork done.
Right.
I think it's just as simple as taking the sign over by Penn Stable and putting it back where it was.
I think,
Because we had to do an ordinance to put it at Molina's originally.
it used to be at Penn's Table, and then I thought, and then my understanding was that it was moved for the Jack's Corner construction to the park. It was a metered parking spot next to Molina's that was turned into a temporary loading zone. But then once construction was complete, if you look by Penn's Table, it's like no parking and you can't actually put the loading zone back now. So she's asking that we modify the ordinance for the original Penn's Table ordinance to be moved here instead. Penn's Table, I haven't heard anything from Penn's Table about how they feel about where the loading zone is now.
They're probably the only one that pays attention to the loading zone. Because when you're up there walking, their delivery trucks don't double park.
Mhm.
They actually park in the loading zone and take everything into the restaurant. But the other loading zones, they're just a free for all, whatever. Yeah, yeah.
I don't have any concerns. It's probably worth a conversation with Chris Lucas at Penn's Table just to make sure he doesn't have any objections. Doesn't sound like he would,
Okay,
but just as a courtesy.
okay. I'll reach out to them. Great.
Okay. We're going to move on to C, the posting.
So this is, so I tallied up just for conversational points here. We get this, last year alone, we had 7,293 signs for temporary no parking signage posted throughout the borough. So my recommendation, I calculated, I spoke with my staff. It's an annoying number, but if you at least charge $1 per sign, because that's how much the string and the sign cost per sign. And you charged, it would be $6.25 is about a quarter of a staff member's time to post. You could, that would be a starting point. So $1 per sign and $6.25 for the first block or first 15 minutes of posting. And then you could, depending on how you all feel about the cost associated with it, then if it was 2 blocks, you could double the $6.25 to $12.50, and so on. we don't get a ton, but there have been months where we'll have like 250 signs need to be posted for certain projects in the borough. And, that's a lot of staff time dedicated to posting it, plus the signs themselves.
Yeah, my feeling is the residents shouldn't have to pay anything. Excuse me, for example, if they're moving or they're going to get a refrigerator delivered. I mean, that's a one in a
Right,
lifetime living there.
right.
I don't think the residents should have to pay for it.
Okay,
But anything that we do commercially,
okay.
it's a lot of labor.
Yeah.
For our staff to go out and do it, 7,000 signs. But I don't think residents should ever have to pay for posting in front of their houses. Like, for example, the parking meters along Church Street where Aqua's putting water lines down Church Street. They're posting, you can't park on one side of the whole street, so.
And just to clarify, so meter rentals are in the ordinance and they are $21 a day for a meter rental. And those are meter bags. This would be for postings mostly on side streets. And I agree, getting a refrigerator delivered isn't the same as a plumber taking up an entire block for water service.
What about the dumpsters that are parked across? There are no meters there, but they're there for months on end.
Right. They do pay a dumpster. I think they pay a dumpster fee to Public Works, but I think everybody should at least be paying for the signs just because they add up quick in our department. Are you talking about the length of time? Just how much?
Oh, I'm wondering what the term commercial. If we're talking about construction, I mean, in my neighborhood, there are moving vehicles, there are delivery vehicles. Nobody gets anything for the delivery vehicles because it's not necessary. But the dumpsters are there forever, so everybody gets these signs and they're just there, and the owners are setting that up. It's rarely the companies setting that up. So I just question where that line is of commercial versus.
I mean, and we're talking about a nominal fee. We're not talking about $100. We're talking about $1 or $7.25, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I wouldn't balk at that as a resident.
They'll build that $7, and the contractor will right into their bid.
Right, right. But I think what you're saying is where do we draw the line, right? And how do we, so I don't know. I mean, I've had stuff delivered. I don't get a sign that says don't park here. Right? Although there are signs on my 3 blocks today, I had to park 2 blocks away because there's no parking this way, and this way. I think there should be a fee.
For everyone.
I think it should be for everyone.
Bernie's against a fee for everyone.
It's $1.
Mr. Jingles is, I think our residents don't need to be charged, but any licensed contractor doing business in the borough, licensed plumbers, electricians, blacktop, macadam people, they should, they'll build it right into their fee, but the not that I'm having anything delivered, but the residents, I think, we don't need to bang them over the head for that.
Okay. I'm okay with that. I think I'm with Bernie. I'm having a hard time here, but I think if you're getting a permit, if you're doing work where you're going to take up the street, then you need to pay for the signs. If you are a resident and you're moving, you don't have to pay for the sign.
Or how does the dumpster situation play in there? You're doing renovations on your home
I
and
know.
you're
I'm
taking
taking
up-
my own dumpster. That's why I'm getting fuzzy
yeah,
here.
yeah.
The dumpster, the people that want, and Mr. Metric, you can straighten me up on this one, but if you have to, first of all, you go get a permit from Public Works for the dumpster, and there's a time limit on how long the dumpster's allowed to be there, and there's a fee associated with the dumpster. And they work directly with Public Works on that. So just like a building permit,
Can we add that fee? Can we add that fee on top of the fee that's already being paid? Like,
The permit, the
Yeah.
dumpster?
can you get that fee from the dumpster, add it, tag it onto the dumpster permit? So I don't have to track you down and pay Public Works.
We're working on that, yes. So everything, you can pay for everything online, I think, and that's the goal, is to make it self-serve. So you would just get this approval. And actually, I think our new software might help with this as well, but that you would get the dumpster permit. And then if it was in front of 3 meters, you would pay that at the same time as well. Same with postings. So you don't have to go visit everyone in the borough, as much as we love.
That makes sense to me.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So we're saying no, commercial only. And 625 per block plus $1 per sign. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Handicap parking requests?
These have all been surveyed. Actually, 412 Hannum Ave and 1 South Bradford Ave have been surveyed 42 times and never had a car there. So I'm comfortable recommending the removal of those. 330 Sharp List, there are none on the block. So the gentleman that requested it, I would say I would be comfortable with recommendation of addition of that.
Okay. Business? Seeing none, we're adjourned.
Thank you.